Jack Rickard, and this is EVTV. I'm here with my co-hostage, Richard Flingy.
Did they replace your normal Richard with Folgers coffee?
Did you crawl off a milk carton somewhere?
I did. I came off the milk carton completely.
Do you know how many times I have heard about
I'm off the carton,
where's
baby. Brain didn't know where Brain was for a little while.
Brain has
dead.
been on sabbatical, much needed and probably deserved. I guess only Matt Hauber knows what it's like to work with Jack Rickard for 6 months.
For an extended period of time. Yeah.
And,
only one other guy knows longer than that.
He's been very kind. He doesn't tell much about it.
He just keeps it. What happens at EVTV stays at EVTV.
Well, he's really been pretty good about that. Thanks, Matt. But in any event, welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
You were commencing your 6th employment at Rickard Enterprises.
I had various and sundry formations and cohabitations.
There was a partnership in between with the Krav Maga.
Yeah, we did. Do some jujitsu and some
Emporium and House of Barbecue Chicken Wings.
Absolutely, yeah. Brazilian jiu-jitsu and some Israeli self-defense. Absolutely.
Israeli self-defense. That's right. Which is why Brain is trim, and I'm not. I was the silent partner in that.
Non-moving, motionless partner.
Would you believe I never have really picked up any Krav Maga?
No?
Yeah.
We'll have to put some up and show them something.
Tell them what Krav Maga is.
It's actually a fairly aggressive style of self-defense that was invented, if you want to, by the Israeli self-defense forces. When they became after they became a state. They needed to have
Brazilians
one.
That had,
well, and then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was separate, and that was a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah, I trained
You've all
with.
seen, what is it, the Karate Kid, and how there's this sort of mystic Asian thing to do for defense and peace and light and Buddha.
Yeah.
Krav Maga is the one where they say, to hell with all that, we're going to kill you.
Yeah, and then figure out what happens then.
Right.
See who's standing.
We're going to rip off your face, and then we'll talk
Hopefully
to you
it wasn't a mistake. Hopefully you weren't a friendly.
The dark side of the Force.
It is. The dark side of the Force.
Well, criminy, it's good to have you back.
Well, thanks. It's good to be back.
Do you still know anything about electric vehicles?
You know, actually, I stayed quite up in electric vehicles. Went to the Advanced Battery Conference in Pasadena last month. Stayed up.
What did they do there?
You know, they actually it was kind of interesting. It was geeky, you know, and geek and techie guys are in right now. You know, the South by Southwest conference is going on in Austin, and you know, it used to really be populated a lot by, you know, filmmakers and you know, the kind of indie music and stuff. Geek is in, man. Geek is in.
Has our day come?
Yeah, that's and you know, and our old buddy Bob Metcalf is down there in the middle of it.
Oh yeah, he's at University of Austin.
Yep.
Doing a.
It's an entrepreneur thing. Yeah. I think he goes back and forth from Boston.
Trying to teach dumb Texans how to start their own high-tech business.
And Austin's doing. I mean, it's become a magnet. Yeah.
That's San Francisco, Texas, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is. Yep. So geeks are hot right now. It's out of control.
Cool. But the advanced battery conference?
real geeky. A lot of papers. In fact, I'll let you look at some of them. And even some things, just some basic stuff. I mean, fire suppression, a lot of testing equipment for life cycle modeling. Some of the batteries, ultracapacitors. Some of the hybrid ultracapacitors that are lithium-ion ultracapacitors now. There's a lot of stuff, some flexible ones, all kinds of stuff going on.
Cool.
And so I've been keeping a hand in the business.
So you've been back this week. We've mostly been trying to get out orders so we can cover the payroll. I don't know how this is going to go. We still have to do a show and build electric cars. But we're adding a few staff trying to get out ahead of it. Did you have a chance to prowl the internet and find us any EV news?
I
As
did.
You were always so good at.
Yeah, there's always stuff out there. Of course, we'll find some that's not necessarily EV related, but you'll just have to put up with me. Some fun facts. I guess we could talk about sales of EVs. What
You're
do you
not going
think?
to tell any antidotes, are you?
No antidotes.
No
No
antidotes, good.
antidotes. No,
Okay.
no. I would. Well, my best one was probably about 180 people a year are killed by falling coconuts. That's about as far as I get out there. I do have a lot more of those, but I'll save them for another day.
Cool.
Link up with me on LinkedIn. I'll tell you a couple. So we sold, or the manufacturer sold about 4,000 EVs in February.
Really? How does that break down? Who's the big 800-pound gorilla these days?
Well, with the Volt, we know how we feel about the Volt, but it kind of, they sold 1,626
Not bad.
Chevy Volts, up from 1,140 in the previous month in January.
That's pretty good growth.
Yeah, that's good. The Nissan Leaf stayed about the same, 653 for February versus 650 for January.
Well, that compares to the previous thing. The Volt did 1,023 February a year ago. They're up to 1,626.
Yeah.
Requiring that 60%.
Yeah, that's pretty good growth year
And
on
the
year.
Leaf,
Yeah,
the Leaf is where at?
653 is what the report says.
February 2/12, 478 units. So that's not bad either.
That's not bad either.
Now, they go off one wall and into the other.
Yeah.
One, we're going to sell 150,000 a year. No, that didn't happen.
That didn't
110, 60. They increased it to 60 from 110. I remember that.
Yeah, remember that? Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
That's a big
Had to
increase. 60
retool
from
to
110.
increase
That's right.
and then everybody's panning the EVs. But if you go back to the introduction of the Toyota Prius,
Yeah, the Prius.
it started
Yeah.
pretty slow. They've been building on that for over 10 years.
For a decade,
and
yeah.
now it's the top-selling car of any kind in California.
Wow.
By contrast, the Volt has sold 15,000 cars. No, actually, they've sold 23,461 in 2012. The Corvette sold 14,000.
Okay, so we've got an indication of where some buyers are then. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
what
the
does-
Corvettes, now I guess that's pretty close to 80,000.
It is. Yeah, they're expensive. Yeah. They've
But,
gotten expensive.
you got to put all this stuff in context. Nobody panic. Everybody remain seated. This is all going to work. It's just not going to happen in the 10-minute period that Titty Blonde told you on MSNBC.
Yeah, right.
She
they
doesn't know nothing about this.
Yeah, they didn't allocate any of the adoption. You know what, too? Our buddy Jeffrey Moore, I don't go aside, but Jeffrey Moore with the Crossing the Chasm.
Yeah.
That we had him speak at our show?
We did, didn't we?
I know. I found his business card. That's the other thing I did. I went through my business cards.
Let's call him and see if he'll come again.
Yeah,
He's kind of off the big wave there.
Yeah.
And he might just do
you
that.
still got Chasm Consulting and all that. I'm sorry I brought that, but we had him speak at the
That's
ISB
why
Con.
I knew so much about that book. You're
Yep,
right.
yep.
We did. I introduced him.
Yep, we did.
I'd forgotten all about that.
I did too. Sorry about that.
So that's where we're at on the Leaf and the Volt, but there's other players now.
Yeah, we've got, if you got, the plug-in Prius is the one we kind of put in here. They're down a little bit, actually, to 693 in February from 874 in January. So I don't know what
accounts for that.
I don't know. I don't know if I really don't know what happened. The Ford Focus, it's 81 cars January, 158 in February.
Well, that's a doubling.
Yeah.
I've got my eye on this car, Brian. I think it's a pretty good car.
The Focus?
Yeah. In fact, I've been working with this Edge. This wasn't even our conversion. It was some clown in Florida did a horrible hatchet job on this car.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been trying to get it back into shape, but I'm trying to do it on no batteries because I robbed it for the test bench. But Jill likes that car.
Yeah, that's what you said. Yeah, she really likes it.
I got to play with it. I kind of like it too. Not the way they did it, but we're gradually getting everything replaced.
Getting it sorted out, yeah.
Now we got the battery pack working, believe it or not, with completely different cells of different ages in series. It's a mess. This is an exercise, an experiment in how not to treat a battery pack or build one,
That's right.
and to see what we can get away with.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be interesting. But then we've got one of the first solitons, and you know, they kind of told me 342 volts. I talked to Sebastian Bourgeois. He said the number's really 350.
Oh, okay. All right.
But
Yeah.
he said the device in there that reads voltage and the calibration of it. And now we're
quite
down
sure.
at like 337 or something and can't get the car to start.
Oh.
Now, if I run the heater and get it down to 334, it does. The Soliton's old, it's actually red.
Yeah, it's red. So it's anodized red, yeah.
He really wants to get it in and upgrade it. Of course, he wants me to pay $800 to do that. But today I caved. We're going to swap
Gonna
that out.
pull it out.
Send it
Okay.
in and get, you know. But, so that's, we're fighting that car a little bit, but we're starting to win. In the engine compartment, you can now get to
It
stuff.
looks pretty good, yeah. Now it's not clogged
it's
up.
laid out like on a workbench. You can just,
Yep.
do stuff with it. And, of course, the battery weight's gone down. And so it's not a power performer, but I kind of like that car. And this Ford Focus.
The Focus, yeah.
What I've looked at and read about that has been actually, and the reviews I've seen of people that have been in it, I'm not sure they're not onto something there, but they make none of them. They wouldn't make them unless you called and demanded
And
one.
demanded it, yeah.
Now
yeah.
they're starting to expand the dealership a little bit. So 81 to 158, you understand, they sold like 39 of these cars through 3/4 of last year.
Of 2012, yeah.
So
yeah.
there was none of them. Now we're up to 156 a month. I've got my eye on that.
Okay, okay. The Mitsubishi, the IMEV 337 in February versus 257 in January.
Interesting story. A guy told me they had and it was reported, that they had a $65 a month lease.
Really?
So I called the guy over in Illinois that had this, and he didn't have any, and it was $169, and a classic bait and switch. Well, apparently it caught on. Then it showed up in Texas at $65.
Really?
And so they can't sell them. They're barely a neighborhood electric vehicle.
Oh, the IMEV? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
It's a neighborhood electric vehicle that will go 65.
That's scary.
That's what it is. But at some price,
Right. It becomes attractive. Yeah.
every dog gets a collar.
That's
you
right.
know.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Some of them are purebred poodles, and some of them are
Some of them are mutts, huh?
mutts. And this is what I was saying. The value proposition is very important, and I like this lease idea. I didn't at first, but I've come around. This is how to experiment with electric cars and get people to experience them
Yeah.
without a lot of risk.
Yeah, because the object is to get the butts in the cars. Yeah. At this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the mission.
Yeah.
That's what the Volt, and I don't want a hybrid. But that's how they get them in the car. It's because they don't have to deal with that.
Right.
But all the Volt owners, they're not in a month, and the game becomes, I ain't going to the gas station.
Right. Right. How
What
do I
gotta
avoid?
do to make this 35 miles work?
Yeah.
Because I ain't going.
That's right. Yeah, I've got the capability not to go to the
I
gas
heard
station.
about a guy in Rochester, New York, never did buy any gasoline. I ain't gonna buy any either.
That's right.
How far can I go without buying any gasoline? So it is primarily, and this is my view, after mostly focusing on technology from 17 or 18 to today,
Right.
40 years.
Yeah.
All stories are people stories.
Right.
And all technology uptake is a process of acculturation. It's not a chicken and egg, the technological development. That's all what everybody points to, but it's really about people changing their habits to include that in their lives.
Right. Right. Let's see what we got. The RAV4 EV. Well, it doubled from 25 in January to 54 in February.
Tesla kind of helped them build that, but it's clearly a compliance.
It's a compliance car for California. Yeah. I think same with the Honda Fit. They sold 15 last month.
Nearly double.
Nearly doubled from 8. Yeah. The Honda Accord, their plug-in electric, 17 in February versus 2 in January, but I don't know what to make of that. And then we're looking at a couple of Fords here, the Energy series, the C-Max, 334 in February over 338 in January. And then the Fusion Energy was just introduced. They sold 119.
Those are hybrids.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up Tesla. You don't have any numbers for them.
No, I don't believe Tesla reports.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
And therein lies the tale. It was reported this week that they had actually filed a 10K explaining why they didn't file, or they did a filing explaining why they didn't file their
Right, why
annual
they didn't
report
file.
10K.
Yeah.
They came out with it yesterday. They came out with the explanation day before yesterday.
Oh, so yeah.
Yesterday they actually did release their 10K.
Accountants didn't want to work overtime and get it out.
There's some, yeah, right. There was some interesting things in it, and I'm getting where I like these stock filings because it's kind of against the law to lie.
Yeah, you could. I mean, barely anybody ever goes to jail, but I guess maybe they've learned.
Few have, though.
Yeah, a few have. That's right.
So we have a two-pronged system. You can mark it, and there it's okay to lie.
Yes.
And you can file SEC documents, and there it's not.
They're not.
So instead of lying, do you know what they do?
But did they just tell the truth?
Well, they do, but they do it in 4-point type.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You have to have really a pretty good zoom level on your computer and not try to read it off the paper because it's in 4-point type.
Yeah, that's right.
So they're telling the truth, but they try to do it in a real dry, legalistic fashion where you'll be bored to tears, even though it's fascinating information.
It's absolutely fascinating.
And so that you have to be pretty much under 35 years old even to be able to focus on it.
Or have somebody read it to
they
you.
didn't foresee Adobe.
Yeah, the reader,
Yeah,
the
the reader.
Acrobat. Yeah, exactly.
the
With the
reader.
zoom.
Zoom. So with the
plus
abilities of Zoom, you can dig out stuff. They have apparently sold through the end of 2012, 2,450 Roadsters. And they're kind of vague. Again, apparently there's a couple left, but they're marketing them in Asia and Europe.
Okay, all right.
And that was pretty much the amount agreed originally with Lotus.
They get the cars to convert.
And Lotus has moved on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so the Model S, from in all of 2012, they produced 3,100 of them and delivered 2,650.
Okay.
Which is barely over half the 5,000
Of the 5,000.
they counted all year long.
Right.
They say they have 15,000 reservations after cancellations and with the new reservations. It's a little disingenuous. I canceled in December and I got it in January.
Okay.
So maybe a few more
might be a
shows
few,
up in
yeah,
January. They
right.
got
There
put
might be a
on.
few more, yeah.
But maybe they'll get some more sales. They're up to 32 stores.
Oh, okay.
And they're claiming they're going to be producing at 450 cars a week and have enough sales pretty much that they're 20,000 for
13
is kind of assured.
That's what I understand. Yeah.
Now even the 2650, it's 3,100. That's $300 million. See, I couldn't fight mine down under $100,000.
Right. Yeah.
And then weren't you telling me they get some
Yeah,
sort of credits too?
yeah, they were. Their CFO was talking a little bit, Deepak Ahuja, and he was saying that they in their filing that they also have zero emission credits on their electric cars, and they got $2.7 million in those credits in 2011, and $40.5 million in 2012.
So $40 million, they take in gross revenue of $300 million on the cars, and then get $40 million.
They get to sell those
What's
credits.
that, 12-14%
Yeah.
bump on tax credits
Right.
they can sell to other companies so they don't have to make
Right, they can
cars.
sell to guys that don't want to make electric cars.
You gotta love California.
Yeah.
Do you remember me panning the Panasonic battery
Yes, I do.
that they use in there? This is an 18650 battery. It's a double-edged sword. Tesla's doing some good and some bad with this thing. See, by adopting that form factor for their batteries, they, as those batteries are improved, that form factor will always be available because it's used in cameras and flashlights and that sort of thing.
It's a kind of a ubiquitous form. Yeah.
So they have a battery module to upgrade it to the latest and greatest battery. It's just like Lone Ranger Silver Bullets. They pull out the old ones, plug in the new ones, and everything.
And you're good to
works the
go.
same.
Yeah.
Their cunning development, I think, is in their battery module. They connect. Let's take a big plate full of circles around the end of the cells.
Okay.
The cells don't touch the plate.
Okay.
They're connected with little wires. And the wires are fuses.
Okay.
So if
Little
one of
wire-
these cells goes bad and shorts,
it's out of the circuit.
the wire melts,
Right.
and that cell is just very lonely
Right. Yeah.
because it doesn't have a connection to
To
anything.
anything. Right.
That's pretty cunning.
Yeah, that is.
And the ability to model on a cell that's used in the millions for something else is to upgrade their battery packs. They're going to upgrade themselves forever.
Sure.
They
yeah,
get
'cause
they
it's
get
gonna
newer,
keep-
better cells with more energy in them, and
Just-
their module doesn't change at all.
No, just swap it right out. Yeah.
You just put different 18650s in the thing.
Right.
There's a downside. Do you remember me reporting the cell that they used in the Roadster? Panasonic listed that as a life cycle of 800.
Yes, I do remember that. I do.
Ours are conservatively estimated at 2,000 to 3,000 cycles, and here's Panasonic, one of the largest battery manufacturers in the world, saying 80% capacity after 800 cycles. Well,
Wow.
again, it's not nice to lie to Mother Nature in an SEC filing. In fact, it's not nice to withhold information.
Right.
that
It's just
might
as
be
bad.
material.
That's right.
What might be material? They expect the Roadsters, after 7 years or 100,000 miles,
Okay.
to be down to 60 to 65% of the original capacity.
Uh-oh.
Ruh-roh.
Uh-oh.
That doesn't even meet their warranty period,
No, it doesn't.
which is supposed
no.
to be to 80%. And so there's kind of a huge warranty overhang. They're trying to slip in to say, here, we disclosed it, when they're not really disclosing.
Not really disclosing it. Yeah.
But it's 2,450 cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's
Got 'em
the
going.
weekend of these 18650 cells. They're designed for laptops and flashlights. Cycle life is not a big issue,
Not a big issue with that. No.
but it is for cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there is the Achilles heel of the Tesla thing. Now, they use a more advanced battery in the Model S than in the Roadster, but again, it's about energy density, and power density is what Panasonic's going for, not
Right.
cycle
Not
life.
cycle life. Yeah. Yeah.
And so Tesla owners Tesla has pulled some kind of bait and switch things along the way, even with the Roadster and continuing in the Model S. And so you need to be very careful in your estimations there when dealing with Tesla about battery warranties, battery replacements, and so on and so forth. Anyway, interesting document. They did kind of file it, and I think they're going to make it this year. They're going to sell 20,000 cars. There's going to be 20,000 buyers, and they're pretty good cars.
I think so.
What else come up?
Let's see. Well, BMW is, with their electric vehicles, have said that they're going to do a loaner program for some gas cars when you need an electric car. I guess that's one way to alleviate some issues with people, because every now and then you need to drive a little further, I guess, if you're a one-car family.
Like California?
Like California, every once in a while.
Cleveland,
yeah, Cleveland in an emergency, yeah. So I guess that's that's
Poor
an adequate.
Brain goes to Cleveland for his wife's parent emergency.
Yes.
And gets a phone call from California.
Yes, from my father's in the hospital. And both of them had pneumonia.
See, I'm just a couple years older than you are. We're done. Everybody's dead. We finally buried them all. You still got that to entertain you for the next couple of years.
I got a lot of fun. Oh, God.
Is it fun? But no, that's. I think that's an interesting thing.
I do.
It plays into my concept that cars are already very specialized beasts. You do not drive to church in a dump truck. You don't do landscaping in a Cadillac Escalade EXT, even though technically it is a truck.
It is a truck, that's right. But don't call it a truck.
People have more than one car. There's 2.5 cars per family in the United States. And so there's already multiple cars out there. It's okay to have a big road wagon with all the creature comforts to drive cross country. That doesn't get driven very much, and due to your day-to-day.
Your duty cycles are 10 miles or something,
And that works for me, and it'll probably even work for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But for a 25-year-old kid or something, what do you do?
Yeah.
They don't typically have multiple cars.
No, that's right. No, it's a good solution.
So the BMW thing, I don't know how many 25-year-olds are driving BMWs these days, but in any event, if you're a single guy or something, you have one car, and you want it to be electric, that program would let you
that would give you some flexibility.
Drive to the dealer, pick up a Road King, and,
that's right.
and head out for California.
Yeah, and probably have your car washed and charged when you got back. Not bad.
Good idea.
Yeah, and the fleet this month, Wards did report that at least in the light vehicles, 24.1 mpg. Across the vehicle, so it keeps continuing to climb a little bit.
It was at 21.6 for years, and it took off last year, and I think last we reported was 23.6, 24.1 is continuing, as are the gas price.
Yes.
Are continuing to be up, even while the oil is down around $90 a barrel.
I know.
What's going on?
It's all wacky. That is the conspiracy. And it's not a theory.
I think it's actually an economic thing in this country with refineries.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of refining capacity.
We don't, but we do have an endless ability to issue a federal regulation.
You can't build them or anything.
Barack Obama's tribe in Washington has been very attentive to that. And so I don't know, but we can't not have refinery as well.
No, and then in California, you got the problems of the winter and summer blends with the gasoline. It just exacerbates the issues in some other states.
That's pretty much national now.
The winter and summer blends. Yeah. Wow. Complicated.
I have not. Richard was fascinated with this 787 thing.
Oh, okay.
The antidotes about it. I've kind of not really had much to say about it. The National Transportation Safety Board, Office of Aviation Safety, issued an interim factual report on March 7th. these interim reports normally do not reach any conclusions, nor do they recommend any actions.
Okay.
They're kind of the initial fact-finding roundup.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's easy for me to jump up and say another BMS fire. The joy of that's gone out for me. I don't really care. We've kind of won that battle to some degree and lost it to another. There's still people out there that assume that you have to have a BMS to operate these batteries. I would acknowledge you do have to have a clue,
That would
but
be
I
good.
don't think you have to have a BMS. Let me see if I can find the crucial element in here is the timeline. They did have some photographs, and several of the cells are visibly swollen. That does not happen from a fire.
No.
That's what causes a fire. And what causes a fire most easily in any of these lithium cells is overcharging.
Right. That's it. Especially if they were swollen.
There are
Good
two
indicator.
battery management system boards. They call it a battery monitoring unit in the box with the batteries, which is a horrifying idea. And they manage the two contactors where they can completely disconnect the pack,
Oh. Okay.
and the battery charging unit, or BCU, that charges the batteries. Let me talk just a minute about what an APU is, and at the risk of boring some of our more knowledgeable viewers. In an aircraft,
That's never got stood in the way
that's
before.
never really slowed me down, has it?
No.
Well, yeah. You have to address a broad audience, Spring.
That's right.
And the ones that already know don't need us too bad. But some people do. And I'm kind of their advocate to some degree. In an aircraft, you have engines that propel the plane. They're actually quite good at generating electricity. They have generators on them,
Nice, yeah.
often two per engine. They have unlimited electricity. While they're spinning at 35,000 RPM and propelling thousands of tons of aircraft through the air
Yeah.
at 480 miles an hour, generating electricity is not a problem. Now, here's what happens. After you land the plane, the engines are idling and those generators are not doing very well. And in fact, you could be on the ground without the engines running with 300 people on board in July and the sun beating
Need
down.
some air conditioning.
They need some air.
Yeah, please.
And if you've been with me in the DC-3 in July, that's an issue. Normally they have what's called an auxiliary power unit, or APU. And on jets, most of the time, and certainly on the large ones, would you believe it's another jet engine, a little turbine?
Oh, a little turbine. Okay.
And in fact, we've
Yeah,
had
yeah.
some joy in the techie end of what tries to be the techie end of aviation, which is so governed by the FAA that really you can't do much in the way of innovation there.
That's right.
It's very
decades,
difficult.
yeah.
They're just all over you. But, which is why our aviation is slowed to a crawl. And we never did get the flying car.
No, they've tried, but
that's why.
the Jetsons was probably the closest we got.
Yeah, but in any event, the APU is a little turbine that you can rip out, and you can pick them up cheap sometimes after they're shot, and put them in little helicopters and little experimentals, and they'll drive a whole little aircraft. They're not that small a turbine, but they're a micro turbine, and they turn a generator.
Right.
And of course, they run on the same fuel that the big engines
Sure.
do.
Kerosene.
And so when you land, you start the APU. And of course, you have to have a battery or something to start it.
To fire it up, yeah.
And it's kind of a completely separate system that then takes over your main bus for power. And when you've got that going well, you can shut down your engine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now you're on the ground and you're, trolling around on one engine or being towed or whatever. And you still have air conditioning and lights and all that.
Creature comfort. Nice.
The airplane touched down at 10 a.m. And 24 seconds. The APU started at 4 minutes later. At 6 minutes and 15 seconds, the airplane turned into a parking location. And they went through the engine 1 and 2 shutdown at 6 minutes and 52 seconds. At 10 minutes and at 10:21, or about 14 minutes later, while the APU's been running. The APU started, it's been running for 14 minutes.
Okay.
They caught a dip in voltage on the battery bus. And then the battery current 3 seconds later jumps to 45 amperes into the battery for 4 seconds.
Okay.
And then in the next 4 or 5 seconds, the voltage goes down to 30, 29, back up to 31. And about 15 seconds into that episode, they reported a battery failed. The battery bus decreased a volt per second during the next 3 seconds till 28 volts. And then it decreased to 0 volts. And returned to 28 volts 3 times and went from minus 4 or 5 amperes, indicating current out of the battery. And then they had a total APU shutdown at 21 minutes and 37 seconds. So that's from 21:04 to 21:37.
Okay.
The cells were found, of course, destroyed, but 4 of them were swollen in a fashion I recognize.
Yeah, we've seen this before.
We've seen this before.
How it happens.
And so, of course, what charges the batteries is the battery charge unit,
Right.
and it charges it from the APU output.
Okay.
So we started the APU, and we're recharging the batteries, and we do that for 21 minutes,
Right.
and then they blow.
And some of them swell and all kinds of stuff happens.
Yeah.
It erupts.
And so these are, by the way, and for no reason I can imagine, they're using pure lithium cobalt oxide cells, which are the worst. This is the ones that are traceable to the laptop fires and the cell phone explosions and so forth.
Yeah.
But just looking through this, it's if their BMS and their BCU was operating properly, why did they overcharge the cells?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't need to look at it anymore.
No, the timeline.
You all
is pretty good.
can look through this document. We'll put it up somewhere where they get to it, and paw through it and type yourself smart. But I had another guy on LinkedIn, just very knowledgeable, tell me, well, Jack, at $600 a kilowatt hour where we're stuck, and given that you have to have a BMS and a safety system and all this, this just can't be true. I said, well, the reason my math's a little off is because I live in a different world than you do.
Yeah.
First place, our batteries are $350. They're about $450 retail per kilowatt hour,
Right.
is what we're selling them to the end users.
Right. Yeah, they're not 650.
We don't use a BMS, and I can trace 16 fires, not counting this one, 2 battery management systems. And I burn up cells myself. I know what causes them to burn. I can do it on command.
Right, we know how to do it. Yeah. A little overcharging.
And it's almost entirely an overcharged scenario. and we don't use a BMS. We undercharge the batteries a bit, and life is good.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's pretty much that. The conversation was pretty good, Brain. Let's see what you think about this, because I think there is a misperception. Some of my conversations with Eric, Chris, and some of the other guys in DIY land, I know a lot of you are waiting for the price of the cells to come down, and they will. But I didn't know what you were talking about till I got in this conversation with LinkedIn. They think the price of the cells is going to come down.
The cell itself.
Right.
Right.
It's not going to. The cells are going to be the price they are about now forever.
Okay.
That's just the way it is. There's a lot that goes into it. Now, if we could get to 1 billion automobiles like the lead acid guys, they sell batteries for 6% over the cost of the lead that's in them.
Story at this point. Yeah, it's really a commodity.
That's 100 years in. I guess I can't address any of that. That's not happening while I'm still breathing
not now.
in lithium cells. The battery itself, right now, our top seller is a CA180 FI. Right. Nominally 180 amp hours. They're all coming in mid 190s.
That's nice.
A few up over 200. They weigh 12.5 pounds. If you take that battery apart or read the MMDS sheet, 90% of it is simply copper and aluminum foil.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we've
Copper's like $3.87 a pound.
Yeah.
Aluminum is probably a little bit less than that, but not much.
Mm-hmm.
It's 12 pounds of aluminum foil and copper foil and some plastic. There's a certain process that has to be done to basically imprint some not very expensive things on them now. Carbon is charcoal. We use it here in the United States primarily to grill hamburgers, hot dogs. I like little lamb chops.
And what, don't they get the carbon from what? From burnt coconut
shells?
Shells?
Burnt coconut
If
shells is where they get it over there
shell,
in Asia.
Make a battery out of it.
Right. The cathode is iron phosphate. Iron phosphate's a fertilizer here.
Right. Yeah.
If we go to the next chemistry, sulfur, that's to keep bugs from eating your roses. It's as cheap as dirt.
It is.
You can buy a 50-pound sack of sulfur. It's not $8 or
Yes,
something.
it's not. Yeah, the materials are not that expensive. No.
The lithium. They were all on about China owning all the lithium. China doesn't own any of the lithium. They got some lithium carbonate deposits. The place where lithium is the third element of the universe. It's on every continent. It's 14 parts per billion in seawater if you need it badly enough.
Really bad, yeah, yeah.
Where it's laying on top of the ground where you can kick it and pick it up is in Bolivia and Chile.
Yep, that's where they get it.
But we've got a mine in Utah. There's maybe some here in Missouri. It's $4 a pound. Nobody ever looked.
Right.
Who cares?
Who cares? It's not enough money
Right.
to go get.
So the process of building a big machine and a clean room and people and robots and so forth to do this has a certain fixed cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're getting them from China kind of at the best dollar. They're having a price war right now. It's hugely competitive, except nobody can move.
Right. You don't want to be the
Because
first to move.
they have to be manufactured.
Yeah.
Then somebody has to distribute them and sell them. And the guy you correspond with by email to China, he gets something for doing this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he sends them to us, and we get something for doing that. And every step along the way, they're 12.5 pounds, and you got to add shipping in.
Right, right.
We're trying to get cells into Amsterdam right now. You got to add shipping in. This is if nobody taxes it or hits you with customs.
Hit you with a duty or customs.
Is you have shipping. Batteries are heavy. There's 3 battery companies really in the United States. They make a Brazilian batteries, and it's 6% over the cost of the lead. We've had 2 startups here, at least, no 3 fail in the last 2 years. Interdell, what's the one that begins with a V and A123?
A123,
in lithium. There's no air in this. The cells are not going to go down. Are the battery costs going to go down? Yes. How would they go down? Well, let's say that a scenario here. Let's say we could put twice as much energy in the batteries. And instead of getting 80 miles of range, you get 160. Now, would you pay for a doubling of the range?
Yeah, sure.
Sure,
Yeah,
you would.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's say we can go in the next year 4 times as energetic, as much energy in the same cells as we do now. To go from 160 to 320, would you pay again?
Sure.
Well, I wouldn't. I only charge my car now twice a week, and that's at 80 miles. At about 150 or 160 miles, if you offer me more, I'm going to be like, so how much would I get off the car if I just had the 160-mile version?
Yeah, true enough, if you could pick your range,
Well, we could drop the pack from 10,000 to 5,000.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about that.
Right.
I can plug in for $5 grand.
Right. Okay.
160-mile range, I can go to St. Louis.
Yeah.
If you get me up around 200, I can go up there and back. And so at some range, we've crossed the threshold of viability. We drive 40 miles a day nationally. When you get to 80, that's double.
Sure.
So you can drive all day, go home, park your car, and be in and eating dinner, and have an emergency and run out and gather up everybody you know in town and race them all to the hospital, and then go to the store to get them some stuff to eat, and go back and pick them all up and take them all home, and you're still good.
Yeah.
Right. So you got double what you really are using, and at quadruple, that's it starts to go away. Particularly if we start to have an actual real fast charge infrastructure that can do 3C charges. And that takes a lot of power as these packs become larger.
It's going to take longer charging times and more power.
So what we want isn't more batteries. What we want is more energy. If we could put the same energy in half the cells, our battery costs have gone down, haven't they?
No, they essentially have.
If we can do it again, they've gone in half again. The cell still costs what it always did. But now it's holding 4 times more energy. I don't need as many of them. We never did need the weight. Our electric car is not going to float up off the ground if we don't have enough battery weight in it. That's not what we're about. We don't need more cells.
No.
We've either got enough to drive the car or we don't. What we would like to have is more energy to give us more range.
Right.
So the cells probably aren't going to go down from here, regardless of the price of lithium, which isn't much of the cell, because who foresees 30-cent copper, a 30-cent aluminum?
Yeah. No.
I mean,
It's not going to happen.
it's not going to happen.
No.
How about the $5 million in equipment you got to have the small line? That's not
That's not going to go down.
it's not going to go down. The kind of people you hire for a battery factory,
No. It's going to go up.
it's going to go up.
Labor's going to go up. I think we
And
take all
so
the cheap labor off the plant.
the batteries have already, number one, they're half as expensive as people supposedly in the know think they are. And number two, they're not going to go down much from there.
No, it's going to get better.
But they could get better and your cost could go in half.
Right.
5 years from now, to put a nice pack in a car and go 150, 160 miles could be $4,500 or $5,000 instead of $9,000 or $10,000.
it's gone.
That could happen,
now it's gone
but the cell isn't going to go down in price. It's going to go up in capacity.
Yeah.
And so the per amp hour costs can go way down, but the per cell price probably isn't going to.
Right.
But you get me into some silica and account for that volumetric expansion of 400% on the anode side. You get me into some sulfur, again a 200 or 300% volume expansion. You get where you can do that without poisoning the battery and having a cycle life of 35.
Right. Yeah, you got to worry about cycle life.
This is not Buck Rogers rocket science. Lithium air is a little out there, guys. I know you're all excited about it. That one's got some problems. That isn't going to happen anytime it'll be useful for moi, I'm afraid. But there's some very real improvements that are imminent in batteries that will lower your expense to have an electric car, but the batteries aren't going to get cheaper. They're just going to get to be, you'll have a 400 amp hour cell in the size of our 180, and then it'll be a 900 amp hour cell. It's still the 12.5 pound cell.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
and it's still $259.
Yeah. Okay. We'll follow.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
It's still going to have the same number of copper and aluminum pages in it, and the same propylene bag, you know, zigzagging between them, and it's still going to have electrolyte of some sort, and it's still going to have to be done in a non-aqueous environment with low humidity and temperature controlled, and to some precision. These are very thin layers of stuff, but you could have a 1,000 amp hour battery 5 or 6 years from now. Still 12.5 pounds.
That's right.
Still M8 bolts. You know, I mean.
Yeah, that's right. We can do it fast.
It's been cold here in March, Brain.
I know. It's been this weekend's supposed to be maybe 60 or so. People, maybe a good weekend to grill.
Boy, that would be something.
At 60.
I've been eating soup for 7 months.
I know. And the time's changing this weekend too.
Oh, is it this weekend?
Yeah, we're going to daylight savings time this weekend.
I've been cold, and I hate to bore these people to death, but we're going to work on this Escalade heating system probably every show for the rest of the year. We'll introduce a new project or something next year. We're just going to keep revisiting this heating system. Let's take a look
All
here.
right, let's do it.
Okay. Well, we don't have a lot of exciting things to show you this week because I've been messing around with employees and shipments and some other things. We are still, however, thrashing about manfully on our Cadillac Escalade EXT conversion, and it's been quite cold here in March, probably colder in March than it has been in February, and that's been good because I want to get the heating done in time for May and June, so then we can work on the air conditioning all summer and try to get that ready for Thanksgiving of next year. We have had our heating system, and our little JLD 612 has worked very nicely. And it cycles the kilowatt contactor to apply voltage to our Kim hot start. And this is the one we had on the vehicle, and we have removed it. And I'll tell you why. This is a 240 volt AC, 2,500 watt unit, and I had 2 of them. Now our battery pack is 188 volts DC, roughly. In theory it's 192 volts, but I undercharge a little bit by the time I get the key on and get it started, and it's idling using about 15 amps. I'll see 188 volts. And that changes the dynamic a little bit. We had two 2,500 watt units, but I thought I'd go through that real quickly. It's just Ohm's law, so some of you are going to be bored to death. Others, this will be news. 240 volts AC is not precisely 240 volts. We have such a kludge pile of terminology and accepted things, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more today too, that you would think that it would all be rational. It's historical and how they did it and everything else. 240 volts AC is not it's not a peak value of 240 volts. It's more like 310 volts. 240 is the RMS, or root mean square, voltage of a 310 volt, 310 volt AC sine wave. And so the RMS value is, it's simply agreed on, and it's sort of how much work you can do. More akin to DC would be probably the average voltage, which in a sine wave waveform is 0.6316, I think, where in a RMS value is 0.717 of your peak. So I can tell you what the peak voltage would be at 240. We think of 220 a lot. These are rated at 240. 240 times 1.414 is 339 volts, and that'll be the peak value of our sine wave from the wall if you have 240 volts. Now, some people have 220 volts, some people have 208 volts. Don't worry about it. We're not going to run it on AC anyway. And they didn't worry about it either. It's a way of rating the power of the heater. And so they can say that this one is rated for 4,000 watts at 240 volts AC. This one is rated at 2,500 watts at 240 volts AC. All other things being equal, I can stand up with the hood open and the heater turned off, or even the heater turned on but the fan turned down, and I can make this little JLD do anything I want. And what I've got it doing right now is it goes up, it turns on, closes my contactor, applies power to my heater, it goes up to 165 volts, and it shuts off. And that opens the contactor, removes power from it, and the temperature starts to fall as the heat is transferred in our heat exchanger in the Cadillac Escalade. When it gets to 155 degrees Fahrenheit now, that's where I'm turning it back on. And we've experimented with a number of temperatures. I think we started at 110 or 120, but we've gradually closed this up to where it will kind of seek in this 155 to 165 range. And the reason for that is when the system is kind of big, there's quite a bit of fluid in the tanks, in our storage tank, in the heat exchanger. And so it takes some time and it overshoots. And so when it hits 165, yes, we remove the electrical power, but the pump is still pumping it through the system. And by the time it shows up in our reservoir, it might be 175 degrees Fahrenheit. Similarly, we'll turn it back on when it's falling at 155, but it continues to fall. And it'll go down sometimes to 135, 132 degrees Fahrenheit. The problem we've encountered is if I crank that heater up, it's cold out, and I turn the fan up, turn it up to 90 degrees inside, this thing can't keep up. It is sitting there at, let's say, 160 degrees, and it's fully on, and after about 5 minutes, it's at 159 degrees, and then 158. And I've got full power to my heater all the time, and then I'm losing temperature. It's getting cooler. So I actually have to turn down the fan, which reduces the load, the transfer of heat through that heat exchanger, so my temperature can catch up with my heater. And that's not really what we're after. So we're going to make some improvements and go to a bigger heater. Now, how do you size a heater for one of these vehicles? We had good luck in the Mini Cooper at about 4,000 watts with the RM4. It was quite warm. It would warm up pretty good. This, we have 5,000 watts with two 2,500 watt units, right? Well, not exactly. See, we don't have a sine wave. We've got a DC voltage, and it's much lower than either 339 or 240. In fact, it's about 188 volts. If we take the 240 and divide it into 2,500, we'll get roughly, power factor notwithstanding, the number of amps that we use. And this is because of the formula of the power equals I times E, or current times voltage. Very simple formula. It's true in AC waveforms. It's a little more complicated than that, but it's a pretty good rough order of WAG, and we don't have an AC waveform anyway. So let's do the division. What we wind up with is 8.17 amps at 240 volts to get 2,500 watts. Well, we can then use Ohm's law and take our current, 8.17 amps, and divide it into our 240 volts and get our resistance, which turns out to be like 23 ohms. Once we've done all that, I can turn all this back around, and let's say we want 188 volts, divide it by that 23 ohms, and I get my current, which I multiply by my voltage, the new voltage of 188. And it turns out in our 2,500 watt unit, we're actually doing 1,536 watts. So with two 2,500 watt units, at this voltage of DC, I have a 3 kilowatt heater. And it's just not enough to keep up with that big heat exchanger and fan in the Cadillac Escalade. This is a bigger unit, and it is rated at 4,000 watts at 240 volts. Well, that's 16.66 amps. And that works out to 14.5 ohms. I've actually got it hooked up here to a meter, and indeed it measures 14.5 ohms. So our math is roughly correct. If I divide the 14.5 ohms into 188, let me do that here, volts, I'm going to get about 13 amps. And 13 times 188 gives me a new power of 2,437. If I add that to my other 2,500, which is really 1,500, I wind up with 4,362 watts, which is a little more than we had in a Mini Cooper and a little more appropriate for this vehicle. This is not a huge jump, but it'll bring us up. So we're going to take this, which I got on eBay, and we're going to wire it in place of this 2,500 watt and try to get a little more power. This one came with a box on here and a thermostat, and we're going to keep all that, but we're not going to use the thermostat hot start has thermostats. This particular one comes on at 100 degrees Fahrenheit and shuts off at 120, and that's way too low a temperature. And they do that by controlling the wires, the leads into our heating element. So we've disconnected those, added on some of our little adapters for the AN6 fittings we use. And so I've got a tank. Remember, our pump's on the other tank, and this one will have a heating element, and I simply have to take these wires and put this three-prong plug on, this weatherproof three-prong plug, and plug it in. It comes with little different brackets. This was a new unit I got on eBay, I think about $300. And we'll hang that up there. The other thing I noticed is that these things give off quite a bit of heat themselves. And so they went down to Southeast Lumber and got me basically some firewall material. This looks porous, but it's not supposed to absorb water or oil. It's very heat resistant, and in fact, it's for firewalls on cars. And it's sound deadening, which is not an issue for us. But we'll wrap these with this firewall material and use some great big zip ties to hold that in place. And that should keep us from losing so much heat through radiation of our two tanks. While we're at it, one of our, actually several of our viewers, Jeff Southern and a couple others, took us to task on the blog for using the contactor. I like the contactor, but they're right. Cycling this, turning it on and off with current flows, and we're going to have, as I said, probably, this will take us up to about 25 amps out of our pack. Well, let's see. We'll do, again, you can do this math. I said we'd be at 4362 watts divided by 188 volts is 23 amps. So breaking 23 amps at 188 volts over and over and over and over again, we're going to wear those contacts. There is another option, and that's called a solid state relay. And I have a huge bias against these, and it's my fault, and I know it. But they scared me to death. Again, numbers are great, but you have to know what they mean, and I didn't. These kind of developed after my initial training, and it wasn't something we used a lot in aerospace and nuclear missiles. But they're kind of cool. This is a Chinese one. It's a Hager. We're going to carry them on the website. I think I put them up for 48 bucks. And what this is essentially like, again, an IGBT or something. It's a little switch. That's controlled at the gate by 12 volts. Here's two or three things. One, they're rated for DC loads or AC loads. AC loads are easy to switch because they cross through zero. And you can simply do the switch at that point, and it's pretty easy. The other aspect, and the problem is, of course, everything on eBay is designed to switch 120 or 220 or 240, in some cases 480 volts AC, because that's what you do in your buildings and your houses and so forth. We need to switch 188 volts DC, and that gets to be a little harder to find. It is, however, important that you have a solid state relay rated for volts DC. Now, I said I had a bias against them. When I first encountered these, I got a AC load relay, number one. And number two, I didn't know a little fact that is not really an accident, and it's not really dishonest. It's cultural. And that is Crichton and the U.S. manufacturers of solid-state relays give you a current rating for them. And that is, Crichton might be, a big Crichton might be 40 amperes. Now, you can exceed that for a few seconds, but that's the continuous rating on the Crichton solid-state relay. In Japan and Korea, which is where this came from, and the Chinese have adopted it there, they do it differently. And so not only do you have AC and DC, but this is an 80 ampere solid-state relay. That's 80 amps peak. And continuous, you can count on half of that. And this is not a dodge, this is how they do it over there. And so a 40 amp American-made silicon solid-state relay and an 80 amp Chinese solid-state relay, that's the same rating. In our first vehicle, I thought this would be a great idea. All the advantages that everyone's talking to me about now with mechanical relay, I wanted. So I got a 120 volt AC relay, solid state relay, that switched on 12 volts, and no problem. And it worked about 3 times. And this was with a PTC air heater. On the third bout, I shut it off and it didn't shut off. The fail mode was shorted. And so the heater simply melted down, even though it was a PTC. And it's draining the batteries. And I can't tell that there's a problem. But there was a big problem. So my early adventures with solid-state relays were not good. And I've avoided them since then. Doing a little research on them now, it's all becoming clear. There is another matter. It gets worse. The Chinese, really all of them, are rated differently for resistive loads than they are from like motor loads. The control signal on this device is 3 to 32 volts DC. It actually comes on about 2.6 volts, and it draws probably a max at turn on of 25 milliamps. Now your Arduino puts out 5 volts digital and can do up to 50 milliamps total on all the outputs. And so you could actually run one of these, or a pair of them, for example, off of a Arduino and have a motor controller. But in that event, it doesn't do 80 amps, it doesn't do 40 amps. I'm advised by the manufacturer in China that that's a 7-to-1. So this is an 80 amp unit. We could probably do 10 to 12 amperes into an inductive or reactive load. And that's because of the spikes. So you have to be aware of these limitations. And again, let's go over them. You have AC loads and DC loads. We want DC. You have reactive loads and not reactive loads, resistive. Heating is resistive. So we can do half of a Chinese, Japanese, or Korean solid-state relay rating. And we're at, what did I say, 23 amps? This one then would be really rated for 40 amperes continuous or 80 amps peak. The peak isn't going to apply here. We're going to turn this on and leave it on for several minutes. Another factor is this plate on the back. That is your heat sink, and you can buy finned heat sinks to mount these on, and they're a great idea. We're actually going to be mounting it on a metal plate that's in the Escalade, so I don't think it's going to be necessary. But a very low voltage and really a very flexible voltage to turn these on, anywhere from 3 volts to 32. And so our 12 volts that we route through our relay in our temperature controller will be ideal. And we're a resistive load, and this device can do up to 40 amperes. I'm ordering some more of these. We've got 4 or 5 of them that we're going to put up, but I've chased them down in China. We're going to have these 80s, and we're also going to have a higher voltage. These are rated for 220 volts and 80 amps, and that's 40 amps continuously. We're going to have a 480 volt version that's rated for 120 amps, and that would be 60 amps really. But this will let us switch voltages to things like heating elements in place of this contactor. Now we're going to have this on the website for $48. Well, these things are over $100, and they're subject to physical wear. I tested one last night. We literally left the heater on cycling for like 8 hours, and it worked like a champ. It has a little red LED that comes on when it engages, which between my display on the temperature controller and that light, I knew exactly what was going on and could observe it, and it worked very well. So this will be less expensive, less prone to wear, have a longer life, I would hope, and be entirely silent and lighter and always better. But it turns out it's kind of complicated. Again, AC or DC loads, you want DC. If it's an Asian version, the continuous is half of the stated rated current. Now, if you go look at the Crydens, they top out at about 40 amps. But that's continuous, and they can peak at higher values. So it's simply the same thing restated in a different way. And then you have resistive loads and reactive loads, and a heating element is a resistive load. If you go to a motor or anything with capacitors or inductors in it, you're going to be looking at a times 7 D rate. An 80 amp, you would be able to do 10 or 12 amps on it at that. So there's 3 main factors there. But literally, I can switch 80 amps peak and 40 amps continuous with an Arduino digital output with no buffering using one of these devices. And they're not inexpensive, but compared to the Tyco Kilovac, they actually are a third of the price. And so this is something we're going to test on the Escalade. If I burn up 2 or 3 of them, we'll keep you informed, and maybe this won't work out so well. But I'm somewhat more confident now, understanding some of the issues in the application of solid-state relays than I was. So I wanted you to be aware of that before you try them. The penalties for mistakes are kind of gruesome. Again, these fail typically shorted. And so it'll cycle on, and when it cycles off, it just doesn't go off. That's exactly the wrong failure mode to have with a resistive heating element hooked up to your battery pack. If you don't burn up the car, and there have been numerous car fires, at least one attributed to an RM4 MESDEA hot water heater, your battery pack drains to 0 at 20 amps. It's, if you have a 180 amp hour pack, that's 9 hours. While you're sleeping and think everything's off, this thing's on and bleeding your pack to death. And so that's a little bit. You might put 2 of these in series. That might be a backup. You might have a light that on the dash, so when you shut down your car, you can at least detect that this has gone out, and but something to make sure that when you turn off the key and turn off the switch, that you're, and we use switched 12 volts in all cases. So if you turn off the ignition, we lose the power to this. And that will shut this off in a perfect world, but it's just pack voltage, in fact, the negative lead of the pack across that. And if it fails to shut off, my pack will bleed down to 0 volts in 9 hours. And I may not be back to catch it in that period of time. It would be probably an unthinkable, unlikely event that this would be sitting and it would just come on as a failure mode. Then normally it's you switch it on and then you can't switch it off. Had a bad experience up front, and but I'm somewhat confident at this point that if you're aware of those load types primarily and the rating system that's used and give it plenty of overhead, we're going to do 23 amps into a device that's rated for 40. And we're going to do DC amps, and it's rated for DC loads. And we're not doing a reactive situation. These are purely resistive heating elements, and they're not even like PTC heating elements. They're the normal heating element that you would find in a hot water tank. And so it's a pretty simple system. So I did want to talk about that a little bit. I do think it will be an improvement, but you need to be quite aware of the issues in using solid-state relays before you simply suggest to somebody, oh, that would work even better with a solid-state relay. Yeah, that's you've typed yourself smart there. That's a good idea, and there are some advantages, but there's also some gotchas in the game. You have to kind of decipher, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no book to go to. There's no class at engineering school on this. These are just made-up conventions, like lead-acid batteries state their capacity on a 20 amp hour rate, and lithium batteries do it at a 1 hour rate. It's why. There's no why on either. There's no answer on either one of them. That's just how they do it. And if you're not familiar with it, it's very difficult to do the comparison. There's no rhyme or reason to it. But in this case, if you don't know it, it can get you. It can cost you a $10,000 battery pack, or it might burn down your garage. That can happen with this, by the way. There is no total assurance of anything, but that's the reason that we kind of overbuild. We, and this is, Jack didn't make this up. It's a normal engineering practice to build in overhead on your components. If you need 600 volts, buy 1200 volts. At least buy 900 volts. If you need 50 amps, buy 100 amps. You leave some room there for a long life of components and minimal failures and maintenance issues. But in an electric car, unfortunately, some of these issues are, they're just a little bit hosed up. And so unwinding them, I actually ran into a guy with Maxwell in China who speaks or types by email almost perfect English, and he explained a lot of this to me, and I didn't know it. And I was, he was a very bright guy, knows, quite knowledgeable about this. And so thank you, Bob, for giving me the mini tutorial on solid-state relays. There's no reasons for it. It's not something you should have known. It's you just have to know that. That's how Asian, Japanese, Korean, Chinese solid-state relays are rated, and that's how American relays are rated. And I suspect that the things he was saying about resistive and reactive loads and AC and DC loads apply to the American solid-state relays as well. In fact, I'm sure they do. So it's a neat device. It's less costly, it's lighter, and it will probably last longer. but it has there's some reasons I haven't been touting them. We're going to test again, but I ran it for 8 hours just here in the shop cycling that heater, and this one operated like a champ. And getting some of the background issues on these, I'm starting to see why. And so we're getting a little smarter, and we want to share that with you. And so that's the sermon on the solid state relays. So that's our plan for upgrading our Escalade. We're going to do 3 things. Replace one of our heaters with a 4,000 watt instead of a 2,500 watt. I showed you how to calculate how much current and voltage and resistance and power that you're using. And we're going to go from 3,071 watts to 4,362. So we're upgrading that. We're going to add a fireproof, ostensibly heat-proof, insulating blanket that, despite looking quite porous, I am told is absolutely not water absorbent or oil absorbent. And we're going to change our switching strategy from a Tyco Kilovac to a solid state relay. Stay with us.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yeah.
here's some good rumors.
Okay, good. We always like rumors.
I got a document from Winston Chung a month ago.
Oh, right. Okay.
Must have been 12 pages of rambling, almost poetic glee at how those dirty bastards at Sinopoly were getting theirs in the Chinese court system.
Oh, that's right, because of that lawsuit that
He had proven
Yeah.
that they had cheated him left and right, and I mean, he calls them all kinds of names. Really kind of poetic in Chinglish.
Oh boy.
This big sort of long dragon story about, you know, poor boy trying to make his way in a big city,
Yeah.
victimized by these villainous,
Kid from the country.
and how the Chinese court system was backing him all the way. Then this month, I get a note from Sinopoly that Winston Chung has filed a bankruptcy in the court in China.
Jeez.
And
What the
so-
heck's going on?
I don't know what's going on over there.
But it's fun.
But it's turned into a full melodrama. And meanwhile, I've got this guy trying to get us to carry Sinopoly batteries. I still can't detect them with test instruments, find any cars running them, but I think they're just old Thunder Skies in black plastic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't
They all
think
do
there's-
look alike.
I don't think there's been any advance there at all. And now these two companies have thrashed each other to death. And maybe both of them are dead.
Yeah, we don't
I
know.
can't
Both of them
tell.
might be.
I really don't know. But it's an interesting romantic drama of epic proportions in international and
They could make a mini series in China,
They could
huh?
have their own made-for-TV
Yeah, they could.
miniseries.
We'll send Ken Burns over.
No, we need J.R. Ewing to go over and mix it up with him, and he passed away, unfortunately. So he was trying to do a reprise at Dallas. What a miss! You need to be importing batteries from China, J.R.
That's right.
That new energy.
The new
Oil
energy.
is so yesterday.
Oil is so dead.
So that's that. Well, welcome back, Bring. This is your
Oh, thanks, Jack.
our 6th or 7th affiliation.
Yes.
What do you want out of it? What do you want to have happen? What do you not want to have happen? You've had kind of a seance and rest. You went and talked about wine to people. And
Talk about
had some
wine, did some
educational
things.
sessions
I mean,
there,
I think, and I appreciate the thoughts, the cards and letters.
Oh, I've gotten a lot of pressure. When's Brain coming back? I don't know. It's not something I control.
But I think other than our working on the Escalade heating system all the time,
Right, that's the whole thing. Yeah.
I think that the convention, the electric vehicle convention, is probably a big. We started it. It's fun, and I think it's good for the industry. You know?
We didn't start anything. You started it.
Well,
This goes
that's how
back
we do
many
all these
years.
things.
Brian loves trade shows, and I just think they're very tense. It's
a lot to it.
6 or 8 months for 3 or 4 day event. Anything can take you out, an airstrike, a hurricane. Imagine Hurricane Sandy shows up on August 5th here in Cape.
Oh
We're
yeah,
having
it's
show.
over. Yeah.
They 911, they ground all the airplanes, or there's a breakout of the Black Death or something here in North America. It's any
Starts here.
wind can blow you, and you're helpless, having spent tens of thousands of dollars getting ready for it.
Right.
And there you are. But you love them.
I do. I really do like. I do like events. And yeah.
We had
Yeah.
the second one without you, and we got through it. In fact, it was pretty good. We had about 220
Okay,
people.
all right.
I wanted 800. I thought sure there'd be 350.
Okay.
There was 220. They had an election going on. The economy was hosed up. We had about 220, and they were great guys. 40 cars.
That's nice.
Beautiful cars. Some of them were absolutely getting to be. I said this would happen, but then when you see it, this is like SEMA or something. This is like show cars.
Yeah, and it
Used
that's
to be
cool.
junk with motors in it. These are bling.
Yeah, these guys doing some nice cars. I know.
Yeah,
Your
they're
cars are
doing
nice.
some great builds,
Yeah.
and we had 40 of them here, and it was all great. But who knows what's going? So I've decided I'm not, lacking your talents and so forth. This year I was not gonna chase down the vendors and rope and throw them or anybody else. We were just gonna kind of throw it open, and the few viewers and friends I do have could come in, and if they want to come and have a show, we'll pour the wine and feed them.
There we go. Okay.
And have I kind of decided to throw in an extra day because the airport day is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Now, I don't
yeah.
know if this really merits an all day into the evening thing, but we're going to try that and see.
See what happens. Okay. Just play day,
Just
huh?
let them play all day,
Okay.
autocross and drag race, and we did add a neat feature, a truck-mounted dynamometer.
Yeah, I remember we were searching
In the
for
hangar.
one. Yeah, that's cool that you found one. Yeah.
Yeah, me and some guys are going to line up and make a game show out of it, where we guess the
Kind of like
horsepower.
Karnak with Johnny
Yeah.
Carson.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone will have to wear the turban.
More like Wheel of Fortune, where we guess the horsepower of the that'll show up on the dyno from the car
Based
before
on
it
the
goes
car.
on there.
Okay.
And see who's pretty good at guessing. We'll ask the guy to tell us a little bit about his drivetrain, his battery pack, and so forth, and do some napkin calculations and each write down our guess and
Put it in the hopper.
and put it in a hopper, and then they'll run it, and we'll see who won.
Oh, there we go.
And you can bet on your favorite gamer.
Okay. All right.
Parimutuel
As you
betting
go,
window.
that's right. Somebody will be working a window.
And so I think that'll be fun.
That'll be
But,
cool.
You've been out and talking to the hotels and the venue. What's going on?
Well, I do like the choice of the venue this year. I do like that arena center down there. We've got the park in front of it, which is equivalent to the Kappahat Park, where we had the car show and everything. We won't have to move so far. We've got another ability to have another building. We've got a lot of parking areas, some little road area.
It's a lot closer to the hotel.
A lot closer to the hotel. And speaking of the hotel, I know a couple of you have tried to make reservations at the Drury Lodge. Bear with me another week. I went
that
down
gonna
and
be our
talked to them.
headquarters hotel?
Yeah, everybody really likes that hotel. I think it's got that big parking lot out back. You almost can have after the guys want to stay out there and chat and bench race and kind of tailgate out in that parking lot. I think really enjoy it. They've got breakfast in the morning, and then we have coffee and Danish and things again for everybody. So I think that hotel works out. So I've went down there and talked to them this week. So if you're making reservations, I know a couple of you have even called. Wait, because I may be able to get a better rate, and they'll know you're coming with the event and put you together. So that's, you know, that's where
So
we're
we got a
working on.
block. We don't have a price yet, huh?
Yeah, they'll probably be around the same, but just don't want to say anything yet, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in case it's a buck or two more.
We'll get them the best.
That's,
deal
I'm
we
going to
can.
work them. Yeah, I'm going to work them. So that's what we've been doing. We've been doing that kind of stuff, talking to our caterers again this week, and just getting everything lined up that we can do now because, you know, closer to the event as we're dealing with attendees and, you know, exhibitors, that takes a lot of time. So we'll get everything lined out and get it up so you can make reservations.
We've had, I've already been, we've had several, the registration is up. Somehow I let leak that, and I'd never mentioned this to anybody before, that we don't make the speakers pay to come. So I've got a lot of
Well,
volunteers.
there's a lot of
to be
volunteers
speakers
to
all of
be
a sudden.
speakers.
And some of them are pretty good.
Good.
Nick Smith from Auckland, New Zealand.
Yeah, from New Zealand, yeah.
He's the one that just finally swung me over. He insisted we have it, and I said, "Okay, then you're the keynote speaker." So he'll be kicking it off.
He's going to kick off the event. There you go. Good for
And,
him.
but John Hardy
Yeah.
is doing a Honda Civic, and he's in Worcestershire, not in Surrey,
Okay.
as I said.
Okay.
He's in Worcester, UK, and he's doing some cycle life testing on these CA cells.
Oh, good. Okay.
CA 60s or CA 100s. He's building a little Honda Civic with his son. And this is a father-son thing. I thought this would be how it would go. It would be a father and then like a teenage son. All our father-son teams have been like, the father's my age, or the kid's my age, and the dad's in his 80s.
Yeah.
That's our father-son thing. We actually did a photo this last show. We had 6 or 8 father-son teams.
Yeah.
And boy, they were pretty geriatric.
Yeah, in fact, I was watching a video a guy did that was talking about his 98-year-old father.
Right. But John is a real father-son thing.
That's cool.
We're going to do some practical things. Royce Wood is going to talk about automatic transmissions
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah.
and how you know, the flex plate and the torque converter and using and not using a torque converter and external pumps and some of the popular transmissions that you know that have really gotten to be popular with like the race guys because
Good.
they're flexible.
Right.
And so tuning packages have come out, you know, a little box with the paddle shifters and
Right,
stuff where
right.
you can set it up to do it your way.
Get your shift point
Instead of
set and
like
everything, yeah.
My battle with the Escalade, this is like a transmission with a box that's already set up to be tuned.
Right. Cool.
And how to do a couple of those transmissions. I have talked to Marcus Redding, and he proposed a session on just gearing, starting with direct drive and the circumference of the wheel and how fast you can go. Direct drive and how that relates to the RPM torque
Okay.
curve
on the motors. Okay.
He's
cool.
going to take a couple of torque curves and show you what happens to the wheels spinning and your speed of your car, and then go to a single gear reduction like the E-gear drive.
Like the E-gear drive. Yeah.
Why 8 1/4 comes up all the time, and then go into a manual transmission and the different ratios.
That'd be interesting.
And
yeah.
so I think that will be interesting. The HP EVS guys, High Performance Electric Vehicle System, I just did a show on their new AC75.
Right. Yeah, last week.
They kind of threw me under the bus last fall. Something going on, and I never could tell anything was going on, but at the last minute they couldn't come. But they're saying they're in this year, and they
Okay.
got new stuff to show, and I don't know if there's secret stuff or if it's, you know, they're doing a Siamese AC35.
Oh, okay.
That'll be up in the 350 foot-pound
Okay.
range.
Wow. Okay.
And,
cool.
And of course, here coming up is the new Curtis 145 volt
The controller.
three-phase controller.
Yeah. Good.
And so we're going to have that. I'm trying to get Colin Kidder and Ed Clausen to come and sort of lead probably a backroom birds of the feather session. That'll be sort of a side thing. We used to do this on our other shows where we give a room and everything to people that can meet over something that's a specific thing that maybe not is one of the scheduled sessions, but
Right.
they can
Why not?
kind of run it themselves on our generalized vehicle control unit, because they basically got some open source software now and are making progress with the recharge guys and without them toward a Arduino DUI style
Right.
upgraded Arduino at 84 megahertz and using ARM Cortex and 2 CAN bus channels.
Boy.
And so
That'd be cool.
that's getting to be
Good.
a project, and so we'll have some of that. The August venue lets me go at least pitch to some of these university guys that are doing some of the battery
Right,
development
right,
and
right.
see if I can rope throw and brand one of those in there. But I'm certainly open to speaker proposals. And anybody you think would make a great speaker and that you can help me get through to
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
would be a big play. But I think we're going to up the game on the sessions pretty significantly.
Cool. That would be great.
And have a bigger play day.
Okay. Good on the Friday.
And that
Nice.
AC Braze is it's smaller, but it's a little more scenic than where we were.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice.
Parking lot at Show Me Center was sort of
Yeah.
industrial.
And even the back. That's the back parking lot too. over
This
there.
is a
Yeah.
venue that was built in the 40s, and it's got very mature trees, and it's pretty nice.
It's nice. It's a nice place. Yeah. I think it's a good. I think it's a great place.
If it's not 750 degrees.
Well, if it is, it will be.
So I moved out of a little office. Brain's got its desk all neat and clean, orderly again. I had 3 foot of papers on it.
It's, yeah. And only about this half an inch actually counted for anything.
Right. I didn't even know.
Didn't even know they were there.
But anyway, Guy, welcome back. And
Well, thanks.
It's good to see
Thank
you
you. All right,
again.
all right, amigo. All right, hey, it's
and,
good to be seen.
It's good to have
We don't
you.
do this. We don't man hug very often.
Well,
but,
yeah, we're not real.
well, I'm from California.
Well, you're from California. I'm just fat. It's tough to get your arms around me. Anyway, welcome back.
Oh,
And,
thanks.
I need you, but I don't want to kill you with what I guess Chris Fisher calls it the Jack Rickard emotional roller coaster. And I'd be different, but I can't.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, registration is open. We're discounting to $3.99 till May 31st.
Okay, good.
We're going to upgrade also the status of the guys that bring the cars. They not only get a discount to $99, but I want you to get them some fancy shirts and hats where there's some sort of number that goes on their car and also goes on their shirt, goes on their hat, where you can tag a guy to his car from
Okay,
a distance.
we can do that. So
And,
register early and make my life a little easier. So
And I've got 2 guys that have wandered in here in Cape and want to do builds this week.
yes, we
You
did.
don't think this is going to break out here in the heartland, do you?
Yeah, we did it. We had 2 guys. They were here at the same time, in fact.
On the
Yeah,
same day?
the same day.
Then they
were
didn't
here.
come together?
No, they didn't. No, they came in separate cars. So I don't know. I think they're
One
inspired.
guy come in and wanted me to help him. He wanted me to convert him a car to electric drive. And I said, well, hey, I was thinking the same thing. Why don't you convert it to electric drive? I'll help you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And we talked about it. And, well, yeah. I mean, the guy does show cars now.
Yeah, right.
Th-
That's
this
a car
is-
builder, yeah.
There is a whole thing. Everybody gets excited about there's an OEM versus DIY thing. No, there isn't. They've been doing cars for 100 years.
Yeah.
And there's a whole world of guys out there that build up show cars and take them to shows and restore classics and the hot rod guys. There's a dozen different things going on out there that have tens, hundreds of thousands of people a lot of money flowing around.
Yeah,
in it,
supporting a
and,
lot of industry. Yeah.
and none of them are. Well, it's all based on manufactured cars, but that's not what they're about.
No, the whole custom aftermarket
This
thing.
guy had a tricked out Ford Expedition. He hauls around on a trailer behind the pickup truck to go show.
Wow.
And all jewelried up and painted up, and it was a show car.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's
And,
cool. That's what you guys are building, and we love it.
So now he wants to do an electric.
Just a different power plant.
A much simpler one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I was trying to tell him. I
Yeah.
said, man, Brandon Hollinger, the stuff I took out of the car is a lot more
Yeah.
complicated than the stuff I put in.
That's what Brandon did say that. He really did.
And it's true.
Yep.
So we're looking toward a good summer, and I got rain back, and we're gonna do some fascinating projects. And so stay with us, guys.
See you next week.